By early September 1683, the defenders of Vienna can hear the Ottoman miners digging beneath their feet. They press their ears to the ground inside the walls. They float bowls of water and watch the surface tremble. The tunnels are real, and they are getting closer. Somewhere under the stone, sappers are packing gunpowder into a chamber, dug beneath one of the city's last strong bastions. When it goes off, the wall will open, and the army waiting outside is large enough to pour through the gap and take the city in an afternoon. Vienna has held for almost 2 months. It is starving, sick, and nearly out of men. A relief army is somewhere to the west, but it has been somewhere to the west for weeks, and the wall will not wait. The city has days, perhaps hours. What happens in those hours will mark the farthest edge the Ottoman Empire ever reaches into Europe, though no one inside the walls or outside them knows that yet. And the man who ordered the siege will not live to the end of the year, killed not by the city he attacked, but by the empire he served. The army outside is commanded by Kara Mustafa Pasha, the Grand Vizier of the Ottoman Empire, the most powerful man in the empire after the Sultan himself. In the summer of 1683, he marches an enormous force up through the Balkans and into Austria, aiming at the city that guards the road into Central Europe. Estimates of his army run well over 100,000 men. Against them, the Holy Roman Emperor, Leopold I, weighs the odds and leaves. He abandons his capital and rides west to safety, taking the court with him. Most of the people who can leave with him. The ones who stay are the garrison and the citizens who have nowhere better to go. Command of the defense falls to a professional soldier named Ernst Rudiger von Starhemberg, with a force of around 15,000 trained men and whatever armed townspeople can be put on the walls. Starhemberg is not a famous man. By the end of the siege, he will have done one of the hardest things a soldier can do. He will have held a position that everyone, including him, expects to lose. Kara Mustafa does not storm the walls. Vienna's defenses are strong, and a direct assault on prepared positions costs more men than even his army wants to spend. Instead, he chooses the slow, certain method. His engineers dig toward the walls, tunnel beneath them, and pack the tunnels with gunpowder. Each mine that goes off brings down a section of wall. Then the infantry takes the rubble, and the engineers begin the next tunnel, closer to the heart of the city. It is siege warfare as patient demolition, conducted underground, a few yards a day. So the real battle at Vienna is fought below the surface. The Ottoman sappers dig in. The defenders dig back, sinking countermines to intercept the tunnels before they reach the walls. Men fight in the dark, in spaces barely wide enough to crawl, with pistols and knives. Sometimes a countermine breaks into an enemy tunnel, and the two sides kill each other underground by candlelight. Sometimes a mine goes off early and buries the men who dug it. Above ground, the citizens of Vienna can do nothing but listen to the floor and wait to learn whether the next blast comes from their side or the other. The weeks wear the city down. Food runs short. Dysentery moves through the streets, and it kills more people inside the walls than the Ottoman guns do. The defenders are spread thinner with every breach. By early September, the strong outer bastions are broken, and the garrison has lost thousands of men. At night, Starhemberg signals the hills with rockets, asking the same question over and over. Where is the relief army? The relief army is real, and it is coming, but slowly. It is not one army. It is a coalition, assembled by alliance and by the Pope's money. It brings imperial troops under the Duke of Lorraine, and soldiers from Saxony, Bavaria, and the German states. And marching down from the north comes the army of Poland under its king, Jan Sobieski. Sobieski is the most experienced soldier among them, a veteran of decades of war against the Ottomans, and by agreement he will hold overall command on the day of battle. The coalition gathers west of the city and faces a problem that looks impossible. Between them and Vienna stands a range of steep, wooded hills. Kara Mustafa knows the relief is coming. He has weeks of warning. The careful move is to break off, crush the relief army in the open before it can reach the city, and return to the siege afterward. He does not do it. He keeps the bulk of his strength facing the walls, unwilling to let go of a city that is so nearly his, and leaves too little to guard the hills behind him. He has decided that he has time. It is the decision the whole battle turns on, and he makes it inside a tent, days before a shot is fired. On the night of September 11th, the relief army does the thing Kara Mustafa has assumed is too hard. It drags its men and its guns up and over the wooded hills, the range called the Vienna Woods, and comes down onto the high ground above the Ottoman camp. By the morning of September 12th, an army of around 70,000 men is looking down at the siege from the slopes of a mountain called the Kahlenberg. The besiegers are now, themselves, caught between the city and the hills. What follows is a race between two clocks. On the slopes, the relief army begins to fight its way downhill toward the camp, a slow, grinding advance through vineyards and villages against Ottoman troops sent up to hold them. Inside the city, the defenders know none of the details. They know only that there is fighting in the hills, and that under the Berg bastion, the largest Ottoman mine yet is almost ready. Two endings are approaching Vienna at the same time, from opposite directions, and no one can be sure which arrives first. In the early afternoon, the defenders find the great mine. A countermine breaks into it just in time, and they tear out the powder before it can be lit. It is the closest the city comes to falling. If that tunnel had fired an hour sooner, the wall opens, the assault goes in, and the relief army comes over the hills to find Vienna already lost. The wall holds, by a margin measured in a single afternoon, because of men crawling in the dark who never see the battle happening above them. Above, the battle for the slopes lasts all day. The relief infantry pushes down through the broken ground, village by village, vineyard by vineyard, paying for each step. By late afternoon, they have fought their way down off the high ground and onto the open plain in front of the Ottoman camp. The Ottoman line is bent back, but not broken. Both armies are exhausted. And here, with the light starting to fail, the day produces the moment it is remembered for. Sobieski gathers the cavalry. Not a few squadrons, but the massed horse of the entire coalition, drawn up together on the plain, Polish, Imperial, and German riders. At their head rides the heavy cavalry Poland is known for, the Winged Hussars. They go into battle with tall frames of feathers rising behind their backs. Around 18,000 horsemen form up in the dusk, the largest cavalry force ever to charge in a single action. Then they start forward, and the ground begins to move. The charge comes down on the Ottoman line at the end of a day that has already worn it thin. Cavalry that size, hitting a tired and overextended army from the high ground, does not need to fight cleverly. It needs only to arrive. The Ottoman line, already bent, comes apart. Within a short time, the camp behind it is in chaos, and the order that held the siege together for 2 months dissolves into men trying to get away. Kara Mustafa runs with the rest. The vast camp that has sat outside Vienna for 2 months is left where it stands, with its tents, its guns, its supplies, and the green standard of the Grand Vizier. The relief army that expected weeks more of fighting walks into an empty enemy camp by nightfall. Inside the walls, the people of Vienna come out into the streets. They find the army that has been killing them for 2 months simply gone, and the hills above the city full of men who have come to help. Sobieski writes afterward to his wife and to the Pope. To describe the victory, he borrows a line from Caesar and changes one word. Where Caesar wrote that he came, he saw, he conquered, Sobieski writes that he came, he saw, and God conquered. He sleeps that night, by some accounts, in Kara Mustafa's abandoned tent. The Siege of Vienna is not lost on the slopes of the Kahlenberg. It is lost, weeks earlier, in a tent, when one man looks at a city that is almost his and decides that he has time. The walls are saved by the countermine, and the field is won by the charge. But the battle is decided by a delay. Kara Mustafa had the strength to win at Vienna. What he did not have in the end was the willingness to stop wanting the city long enough to guard the ground behind him. The defeat follows Kara Mustafa home. An Ottoman army does not lose at Vienna and forgive the man who lost it. He retreats toward Belgrade, blaming his commanders and executing some of them, but the failure is his, and the Sultan knows it. On December 25, 1683, on the order of Sultan Mehmed the Fourth, the Grand Vizier, who had come within a countermine of taking Vienna, is strangled with a silk cord. It is the standard end for a high Ottoman official who has failed. The man who decided he had time does not outlive the year. The empire he served does not collapse, but it has reached as far as it will ever reach. The frontier that touched the walls of Vienna in 1683 begins from that year to move the other way. Over the following years, a long war pushes the Ottoman border back across Hungary, and the edge of the empire never again comes near the city. For 2 centuries, the Ottomans have been the power the rest of Europe measured itself against. Vienna is the year that measuring starts to change direction. Turning points are almost never visible from inside them. The people on the Kahlenberg and the people behind the walls did not know they were standing on the farthest edge of anything. They knew only that it was a long, frightening day that might end either way. We tend to imagine that the great hinges of history announce themselves. Mostly they do not. They feel, to the people living through them, like an ordinary emergency that has gone on too long. Around 18,000 horsemen came down off the mountain in the last hour of daylight on September 12, 1683, in what is still often called the largest cavalry charge ever made. They broke an army that had spent 2 months a few yards from victory. The Ottoman Empire reached the walls of Vienna once. After that afternoon, it never reached them again.